40 minutes into the session, we get into the most talked about hand that I've ever played. It starts with Johnny straddling to 20 from under the gun. I'm under the gun +2 with ace queen of spades. I don't see it's a straddle and open to 35. That's not a full bet, so I have to toss in another 5 to complete the min raise to 40. The button calls with queen 7 of hearts. Johnny's getting a good price, so he calls for 20 more with 9-6 of spades. The flop comes jack 10-4, all spades. Johnny and I both flop flushes, and I have the nuts. Johnny checks. I've got my first real decision. I can get tricky and check, or I can bet. I'm not a fan of slow playing. I want to build this pot up. I bet 50. The button folds. The action's on Johnny. He goes for the check raise and fires 175. I don't have a ton of history with Johnny, but in the short time we played together in this session and on the Stone stream, Johnny hadn't check raised or attempted any big bluffs against me. Him and I had played pretty straightforward against each other while mainly going after other opponents. For this reason, I'm thinking Johnny probably has a big hand. I don't get the sense he's bluffing. I take his bet at face value as an indicator he's potentially very strong. If he's check raising for value, he's going to have at minimum jack 10, possibly a set of 4s, or more likely, he'll have a flush since there are a ton of flush combinations in this range when he's getting almost 6-1 on a call pre-flop. My first instinct is to flat and trap him. This almost guarantees that I'll get at least one more street of value as long as a spade doesn't come out on the turn. Flatting is 100% the standard line. It protects my entire range, but still, flatting is going to narrow down my range to extremely strong hands. It'll consist of overpairs with spades, sets, jack 10, maybe ace king or ace jack with one spade, ace queen with the ace of spades, and of course, flushes including the nut flush. Because my range will be so narrow, against a really good player like Johnny, I'm worried that he'll be suspicious that I haven't beat and may play cautiously on the turn if I flat. He might suspect something isn't right. I'm looking to play for stacks, and 3-betting the flop seems like my best opportunity to do that. I re-raise to 500. Almost everyone on earth flats in this situation, so I'm trying to get in a leveling war with Johnny by 3-betting the nuts, thinking it'll look more like I'm bluffing. Let's take a look at a hand that I played in another live stream that's a very similar situation. I raise pre-flop with king 4 of clubs. I get called by the big blind who has queen 9 of clubs, and the flop comes 9-8-4 all diamonds. The big blind checks. I c-bet small and get check raised. I sense my opponent is pretty weak, and I 3-bet with bottom pair and no flush draw as a complete bluff. Let's go back to the hand with Johnny now. It's different in that I sense my opponent is strong and I'm 3-betting for value, just hoping it'll look like a bluff. Johnny's in a very tough spot and essentially has to make a decision at this moment whether or not he wants to play for his entire stack, because this pot will be huge if he calls. Wouldn't be completely unreasonable for him to put in a 4th bet, since this is the best his hand is going to be. If he believes he's ahead, he won't want to see another spade or the board to pair either. Not only is this a tough decision as it is, but there's added pressure of not folding because you don't want to make the incorrect fold on a stream and have everyone call you a nit for the rest of your life. The fact that we've played straightforward with each other up to this point probably plays a huge factor in his decision to fold here, which he eventually does. He makes a tremendous laydown in a spot where a lot of people stack off. All the credit in the world goes to Johnny. I table my hand to show him that I had it and wasn't messing around with him. He shows me his hand as well. I'm surprised to see what he folded. If he had seen me play that king 4 clubs hand in a similar fashion as a bluff, or if he had a slightly better flush, maybe he would have flatted or re-raised. Instead, he makes the correct decision. I certainly could have played it differently myself and gotten a bet from him on the turn if it was a non-spade, but if he's folding to a 3-bet on the flop with a flush, he might have also folded if I raised him on the turn. To get 2 or more streets of value, I'd have had to have gotten a good run out and would likely need to flat both his flop check raise and his turn bet. I don't think there would be any chance I'd be able to stack him, and if we got a bad run out, there's a chance that I don't get any additional value at all. I made a decision that I thought would be the most profitable at the time. Didn't work out. I figure I'll get some criticism, but I don't realize how much there's going to be. Not only do I get people criticizing the play in the chat, but Live the Bike also posts a separate video of it on YouTube later. The comment section of that is pretty brutal. Poker News then puts it on its Instagram. They write an article about it. They then tweet out that article. They then tweet out that article again later that day. And for a third time, several days later, plus there's this caller who says,
Brad played that hand like a bitch, dude. Oh. You don't fucking when you got the nut. What the fuck, dude? Seriously, you call right there, dude. I would have played that hand totally different. If I would have more different.
You definitely would have made more money, probably.
Good times. This is another straddle pot. DJ Mello picks up pocket queens on the button and raises to 60. I pick up pocket jacks in the small blind. This is a standard 3-bet against the button's opening range. He just happens to be at the top of it. I raise to 250. Captain Key, who I don't know much about, also picks up pocket queens. He's in the straddle, and he re-raises to 540. My initial thought is that this is a perfect opportunity for him to 4-bet light. Since it's a button open and a 3-bet from the small blind, I could potentially have all kinds of light 3-bets in my range. The action's back on DJ Mello, and he's in a tough spot. Wouldn't blame him for folding queens here and getting out of the hand for only 60, rather than not having any idea where he's at against 2 opponents, with me as the 3-better, still to act behind him. He does call for 480 more though. I contemplate jamming, thinking the Captain Key could be 4-betting light, and since the button didn't 5-bet, he won't have aces or kings. The only hand in his range that beats me is pocket queens. If I shove, he may even fold that. On the other hand, it's only 290 more for me to call, and the pot is already 1,340, so I'm getting over 4.5 to 1. If I make a set, I'll have a great opportunity to double up since I'm against 2 opponents and the pot is already huge. I call, not really knowing where I'm at, but I'm hoping to hit the flop hard. Boom. Easy game. The flop comes Jack 9-3 rainbow. A little bit of urine comes out of me. We have top set in a pot that's already over 1,600, and we're against 2 opponents with overpairs. I check. The pre-flop 4-better makes a great check, realizing that it's likely one of us hasn't beat. The button figures he may have the best hand, and he shoves it in there. The graphics aren't correct, and he actually has about 1,500 in the stack rather than the 3,100 that it shows. I have to restrain myself from not snap calling so that I can maybe lure the under-the-gun player into calling behind me. I put in a chip to call, and the remaining player gets away from it and makes a great fold. With no queens left in the deck, my opponent is drawing dead to a backdoor straight draw. I table my hand right away since I have the nuts. The turn is a 5, there's no chance to lose now, and the river is an ace. We win an enormous pot of around 4,500. Our stack is over 5K. We're winning big and having a great time. Now we're playing 5-handed. I pick up ace-queen suited under the gun and raise to 35. Captain Key calls in the cutoff with pocket 4s. We're heads up and the flop comes ace-10-4 with 2 hearts. I have top pair with a good kicker, and I go with a check here to mix it up a little. The opponent has bottom set. Not great news for us. He bets 35. I call. The turn is a 3. I think it's very likely that I'm ahead and don't want to get checked back, so I lead out for 90. I know this line looks strange, but I played other hands on stream similarly when I check call flop with backdoor draws and then lead when I get a turn card that gives me a lot of equity. I need to do it when I actually have hands too. The opponent just flats. The river is a 5. It's a terrible card for my range. The good news is that no Broadway draws or flush draws get there, and that's what I put my opponent on. I check to give him an opportunity to bluff at it. He bets 400. It's more than the pot. He can obviously be value betting with a lot of hands that have me beat, like any 2-pair or better hands. I'm getting less than 2 to 1 and need to win over 35% of the time for a call to be profitable here. Probably not getting the right price. I'm on the fence. Try to look at him to get a read. In my mind, he doesn't look too comfortable. My gut says to call, so I do. My read is wrong, and I pay for it. This hand is one that I'm actually more frustrated with than the flush over flush one because someone told me prior to the show that Key plays tight. I just forgot that in the moment. Also, I wasn't getting a good price. I could have gotten away from it cheaply, but instead, I lose the maximum. In this hand, we pick up Queen 9 suited in the cutoff. The hijack came back from a break and had to post. I raised to 50. Weeze calls in the big blind with Queen 10 suited. We're heads up. The flop comes King Jack 5 with 2 hearts. I've got a gutter. Weeze has an open ender. He checks, I bet 45, and the opponent makes the call. The turn is the 8 of hearts. It's check to me. I fire again, this time for 165, hoping a hand like the one he has or even a pair of jacks will fold. That's what ends up happening. We get the bluff through and take down the pot.
Nicely done by Brad Owen. Brad won 2,300, so Brad and me, the big winners.